Yeah, we can start.
Very warm welcome to all the panelists and also the participants. It's a great afternoon, and we are having a panel discussion on a very, very important and pertinent topic related to compliances, which is also related to ease of doing business through industrial law compliance, and also the contrast that it comes with. To introduce myself, my name is Sumit Sabharwal, and I lead TeamLease HRTech Limited. I'm having a couple of decades of experience in the industry, and in my erstwhile roles, I was the CEO and Managing Director of EODB's Asia Pacific business. I worked with various organizations like Godrej, SR, HDFC Bank as the business head. And I have with me an eminent panel, and I'll just introduce the panelists to you. I got Mr. Sanjay Banka with us. Sanjay has over 25 years of experience in telecom, retail, and infrastructure sectors. He has worked with companies like Usha Martin in Calcutta, and Reliance Communications, Bharti Airtel, MTS Telecom Russia, and Landmark Retail Dubai. Sanjay is presently the CFO of Senco Gold Limited. Sanjay is also a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He is also a member of the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment London and the India Council of Arbitration and All India Management Association. Sanjay enjoys writing, singing, music, and traveling. A regular speaker at professional forums as finance and industry advocate, and also has submitted many articles in financial journals. He's also authored UPSC Civil Services exam books for NGOs as a part of his social contributions. So welcome, Sanjay, to this panel discussion.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Sumit, for the nice introduction. And it will be a pleasure to listen to all my co-panelists and share my views and suggestions with the participants. Thank you.
We also have Mr. Narendra Kumar Natarajan. Narendra is an ex-army officer and has over 28 years of corporate experience. He's now working as the head of ER at Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages Private Limited. Narendra is a member of National Committee on ER and a champion of employees' workplace rights and disciplinary actions. So welcome, Narendra, to this panel. Along with Sanjay and Narendra, we've got Dr. Ankita Singh. Dr. Ankita Singh is the Senior Vice President and Global Head of HR, IT, Admin, and Travel at Signex, and the founder of HR Association of India. Dr. Ankita has previously worked with companies like Datamatics, Hexaware, Zensar, Converges, and Sahara India. Dr. Ankita comes with 22 years of progressive experience in managing and leading various aspects of HR, spanning across high-paced business domains of IT-enabled services. In addition to all the functions of HR, Dr. Ankita oversees the other enabling functions like admin, travel, and the resource management. Dr. Ankita holds a PhD in management and is a gold medalist in BBA as well as MBA. She's done her MBA and business strategy related executive management programs from IIM Ahmedabad, ISB Hyderabad, and XLRI Jamshedpur. She's a certified PPA, Thomas Profiling practitioner. And apart from this great recognition, Dr. Ankita also has successfully completed one of the most prestigious certification from Harvard Business School online, which is on the sustainable business strategy. Dr. Ankita has also excelled in establishing and very innovative and competitive initiatives and institutionalizing a strong performance-driven culture at Signix, which has resulted in the companies being certified as a great place to work for many consecutive years, starting from 2017 to 2018 to 2019 and 2020-21. And various awards has been honored for Dr. Ankita, which includes Forbes India Great Manager Institute Awards of Top 100 People Manager in India for the last 3 consecutive years. Her expertise includes transformational change management and merger and acquisition initiatives. She has extensively worked in all facets of HR with special interest in the field of leadership development, organization behavior, culture building, and employee engagement. Welcome, Dr. Ankita, to this webinar.
Thank you so much, Sumit. Extremely happy to be here. Thank you.
Sure. So we'll start with our eminent panelists on the discussion on the industrial laws compliance. Industrial law compliance is very, very important, specifically in the fast pace of today's business world and how the laws are governing the industrial enterprises. What are the various employment laws, the environment concerns, the various acts which are there, the contracts, the industrial relations, and across the industry. So it will be great to understand the perspective from our fellow panelists on the importance and the basics of industrial laws compliance. I think, Narendra, you're on mute.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Sumit, for a good introduction, and I'm happy to be here as a co-panelist with other eminent people here. Yes, today, more than any time, compliance assumed that, very important position in the business. When I'm saying why, because today the world is, anybody can reach anyone in matter of seconds. In the world of social media evolution, anything which is non-compliant gets highlighted quickly. And also the government officials are also capable of reaching you through all this non-compliant seen in the social media quickly. So it has become very, very important now in the interest of business continuity. We need to keep all our compliances, whether it is statutory, even non-statutory compliances, whatever you state as an organization, you keep following it up to the T without any deviation. That's the mantra today, to be risk averse. That's my take.
Sure. Thanks, Narendra. Very, very, very important. Specifically with respect to the new age where the information can travel at a lightning fast speed, more than that even at some times, and importance is really to the organizations and to the employees to keep up with these compliance laws. Thanks, Sanjay. Your views?
So see, I would say that industrial law compliance, it will vary from industry to industry, and it will there will be one is the state level specific law. There are general national law which are amended from state to state, and there are some local laws. So what are the general laws? The general laws are Factory Act, Industrial Dispute Act, Equal Remuneration Act, Maternity Act, sexual harassment related regulation. And most importantly, there are also rules relating to stock exchange, your employment exchanges. The riskier one are the pollution one. And we've seen that how one of the in one particular state, an entire copper plant was closed for almost long time, and 50% of India's productivity of copper was impacted. That was also a big company. So it's very important for us to understand that irrespective of the size or nature of the company, if you are found deficient in the industry law compliance, there is huge risk the business can come to closure. There was one hospital in Calcutta in which there was a fire at the basement because certain waste products were kept there, and there was being a hospital, there was a fire and a lot of patients died. Majority of the board of directors were arrested summarily and put in jail for more than 3 weeks, including the female director. So that shows that the nature of compliance which is required for industrial law. You would not have seen such risk in case of Companies Act or Income Tax Act, where the risk is primarily monetary penalty. But in industrial law, the risk is severe and huge. The risk is, can be up to the closure of the company. The risk is arrest of the directors, and hence one must be very, very careful. And local laws are very important. And that's why I always say that in any compliance, one must the concerned functional head should take the responsibility and ownership of identifying all the laws. They must understand how the competition is doing. Sometimes we ignore the competition. We say, no, let him do what is the concern. We will not do. It is very costly. That's not correct. Because if competition is doing, there must be some reason. What is the incumbent doing in a particular state? So when you set up business in new state, you must understand the practices from the incumbent and either learn from them on a goodwill gesture or try to get information, insider information, and build a solid, strong framework for industrial law compliance. That's my 2 bit on it.
Thanks, Sanjay. It's very, very important, the example that you gave of the hospital and how, not following the right laws can be life-threatening, and for the not only your employees but also the end user of the services or the products that you are giving, and then the repercussions are there. And as we say that in compliance parlance, that the cost of non-compliance is always much higher than the cost of compliance. So absolutely, Sanjay, you're bang on with that example. Thanks. Dr. Ankita, your views on the importance of the industrial laws?
It is extremely important, as stated by other two in the panel. See, it's more like you are already in a field, you know what game you are playing, rules are defined, and just imagine you are going against the rule, how far or how better you'd be able to survive. When we talk about importance of compliance, I would say first it helps us in defining and controlling everything that we are into. Second, I would say it gives us, a design model versus default. You know what has to be put where, which are the right blocks. When you're dealing with work, workplace, or workforce, these are three different categories where we primarily interact and handle. And by design what has to be done where. So it becomes really critical because that's what you are playing in and out throughout. Third, I would say any company, when we start, or any particular initiative, be it how small it is or how big, why you have introduced it, what has to be done, and how it has to be done. And if if we are not compliant, if we do not understand how critical it is to connect those dots, we will definitely fail. We have been talking about, the district level, state level, or at national level, but we also know a lot of organizations, particularly like if I take an example of, say, sexual harassment, right? POSH Act itself would only protect females. A lot of organizations have come up and they have their own compliance set, which would say, safe for all organization. But we have to know, like Sanjay very clearly mentioned, where it can put you later, how difficult the situation can become if we restrict ourselves to our defined norms and we try and play around. So a feel good factor or a more practical factor to make it gender neutral or safe for all compliance is doable, but at the same time, can you do more than what is mentioned in POSH? So those segregations, those clarities should be really handy with the management and HR people or all the stakeholders to understand the importance, the role, and ensure it's helping the organization. Sorry.
It's very important. What you brought out is very important. I feel it's very, today we are talking of social licensing. What is social licensing? It is not just merely complying to the law. It is beyond that. You have to keep looking at what is that you are going to do, which is not raise the hackles of community around, rather make the community also, you are getting amalgamated in the community where you're operating. Like a company like ours, where we sell beverages, one of the important thing is water. Everybody, says, yes, beverage company guzzles the water. So what are we doing about it is very important. Nowhere in the law it states that you have to replenish the water. So what we have done, whether it is Coca-Cola or even our competitor Pepsi, we are all striving to replenish the water which we are drawing from the ground or any source. So we create a water harvesting infrastructure. Currently, we are replenishing at the rate of for every 1 liter, we draw about 1.4 liter. And we have a plan by 2030, we have to at least twice the amount we have to replenish. Those are the things, called giving us a validity as a social licensing. People start, respecting. It is not only we do the replenishment, we also communicate, we also make sure that people see in the right earnestness what we are doing it. So every company, it is not just one company, each company, like he was bringing out about a copper company, which got, troubled in Tamil Nadu. Obviously, if you look at it, have they not complied? Has there not the government, the various machineries like a director of factories or somebody who was given the license to operate based on the compliance, whatever they shown? What is that they fail to do is they fail to gain the respect among the people, or fail to, that's called social licensing, where it really failed. That's how they were, they were not able to surmount the resistance which has erupted locally. And they finally ended up, bigger, issue. So which the country itself suffered later. The fact of the matter is whether people really, suffered or not, there is no, reliable data. Everybody said, people are affected by copper smelting, things. Various people had cancer, people had this and all these things. Is it all reliable? Is it something, both the sides were doing something? But somebody should have, taken a lead, or the company which is operating should have taken a lead and done a thing to get the social licensing. What they should have done, they should have taken the local people as well as a reliable NGO and seen what is that kind of a remedial action they should do in order to, exist there. That is the thing, I think, it's very important today.
No, I will add to it on this point. One is that this social equity or social licensing, it is clearly based on ethics. So while the laws are evolving from time to time, but ultimately the laws are being evolved to define the responsibility of the corporate in the society in which we operate. This ecosystem, this child labor, the female labor, the contract labor, they are very vulnerable section, and it is only through this law that they will be given the protection. There may be unfortunate incidents like what happened in Singapore. Like Tata Group is worldwide renowned for social service, taking care of society. Still, there one can come across a situation where due to political agitation, you may lose out of a business. So those are unfortunate incidents. But overall, as you rightly said, that if you maintain a good social licensing, social equity, take care of the environment, take care of the people around your plant and your factory, you will definitely sell through. And even if there are minor non-compliances, the local labor department and labor inspector, they will never take harsh action against the management. So that's the key.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. I think very valid in terms of how the laws are not only for compliances, but also the laws can have a very long-term effect on not only the employees, the customers, but also how it affects the entire country and the various users, not only the direct users, but also the indirect users of the products, services, and who are connected, basically all the other stakeholders. I think very important and deeply thought about examples where, we as a leaders of the industry, can take learnings from.
That is very much true. I am part of the CII National IR Committee last 4 years. This 40-member committee, which actually discuss all these things. And whenever this, like, let's take about the code on various aspects which are coming, code on minimum wages, code on, various things, 4 codes are coming. So even before that, we were debating, we were thinking, and there is a team of people, like not only us, we were talking to the union leaders, we were talking to the government officials, labor ministry, and so many people. And finally, we are fine-tuning those codes. During that time, one of the things CII thought about is how we are going to educate our member groups. I'll just give an example of what had happened one of the meeting. That time, the chairman is from Mr. Uni. He is from Thermax. So he was talking about suddenly, see, the enactment has come. They added a word in the model standing orders. In that, one word is added. That is, people who are, temps also can be, or a fixed term employees also added as a one word. If you remember, about 3 years back. So how does it impact the whole industry? The government has done with a good intention that there are many times people are going on maternity break, people are going on sabbatical. It's even worker stage, like children are in the critical stage of education, say 12th standard. The worker may be, taking a 6 months break to, take him to somewhere where he can, put him on a special care or tuition. Then for that, he needs a leave. All these things are happening. So that kind of a short breaks of 6 months, 1 year, up to 2 years, they're given an option to, employ somebody on a fixed term basis. So how we are going to use it responsibly as an industry is a thing, we were talking about it. This cannot be, misused by any of our member industries. How we are going to pass it on. So one other thing, thought process, even before, the gratuity, another thing to be paid at par with the regular employee, even if he completes 1 year, we ourselves, we communicated to all the member industries that anybody picks up anyone on a fixed term employment, the least minimum what we have to compensate is in that role, anybody who is working with the least compensation, that has to be equally given. Nowhere it is said. If you pay the minimum wage, it's fine. So we did it even before, later, guidelines came. So CII took the initiative and communicate all the members. Secondly, the gratuity, he made an appeal. Please communicate to all your regions, also as well as members, that when they implement it, it is meant to make out this breaks, not as a full-time exploitation. People cannot be taken on full-time, fixed term, and every second year or third year they have to be churned out. That is not the idea. So it is all very some of the bodies, like, they take care and communicate, and some industries do respect that kind of a thing. So this is what I wanted to communicate. Like, there is no law, so we have to know law always follows the practice. Good practices adopted, or something big catastrophe happened. If you see that industrial relations, whatever the Industrial Dispute Act and all these things, how it is emanated, because of the steam and various mass production, people were exploited initially. So it turned out to be a bigger threat. That's how that various trade union act and other things other countries have adopted. Subsequently, India also taken. So if you don't take care of all these things on your own, it can be learned in a very negative way by the industry. It can even impact you very badly. That's what is the story. So industrial bodies do a good job. I'm very happy that somebody sitting in that kind of a thing able to communicate effectively to the members, and members also did their own job. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very valid in terms of the softer aspects of how the laws are actually cascading for the overall socio-economic fiber of the country. While we discuss a lot about the social aspects, the softer aspects, what I'll request the views is the compliance management from an economical perspective a liability, or it is economically supportive? So what will the views on this?
If you ask me, it is not a liability at all. If you comply, actually you are investing for sustenance of a business, number one. Business has to go on perpetual basis. You cannot, run overnight. It is not a fly-by-night operations. We run tonight and next day morning we're winding up. Unless until some industries having that kind of idea, they can, do all these things. But by and large, everybody wants to have a longevity for the business, and the employees join them for that. First basic thing is the job security and longevity. If I join an organization, I have to, have a reasonable job security as well as longevity in this organization. So if these are the things, firstly, industries have to be, very responsible. At the same time, they have to take care of their own employees. For that sake, they have to comply. It's a small investment. It's like insurance, premium you are paying. You spend that money and make sure that you are complying with the requirements, not only with the statutory compliances, other non-statutory compliance, what I'm talking, which leads you into the social licensing aspect. Let us do that. Even the 2% thing on the CSR activity, it is a way to tell the industries, please invest back in the community where you work, so that the community respects you. You are taking care of the community, community takes care of you. That's the idea behind it. So as an industry, it is very important. It is not a liability at all.
I second the view of Narendra, that I don't think that any responsible industrialist or uh, any forward-looking CEO or industrialist can ever call it as a liability. It's a social obligation. No, which of that can be called liability? Pollution control. You can't run a factory or business and destroy the environment in which you work. Child labor. How can you employ child labor? It is unethical. About what? About maternity benefit. You've got female who are working for you. It's your social obligation. So I don't think that any of the industrial law can be called as a liability. There was certain time when there was license Raj in India. So, and license Raj, Inspector Raj. Now, in terms of implementation at the grassroots level, there can be corrupt officers. Now, simply because there are corrupt officers, there are corrupt inspectors, the Inspector Raj. Now, why does an officer become corrupt? He definitely find some non-compliance in your factory, and then you say no, officer is corrupt. If you are fully compliant, you never have any risk. No officer can come and threat you. In fact, you can threaten him. So, to my understanding, the compliance management is not a liability. It is a social obligation. It is a basic hygiene which has to be maintained. And any organization which even displays the slightest of this thinking may not run in long term. We've seen so many businesses in India. They've come and they've gone on one reason or the other. It's only long term, good corporate citizen which survive years and years. And I'm always very much happy to take the name of Tata Group as a very good corporate citizen in India. All of us should draw inspiration from Tata Group. Thank you.
Right. Absolutely, Sanjay and Narendra. I think very important perspectives. From the services industry side, Dr. Ankita, what's your thought about this? Because minimum wages and the kind of compliances that we have to do. So, what's your thought prospect on is it really economically supportive?
Definitely is economically supportive, but I would say it's a liability as well to an extent, because when we are talking in terms of law, when you are answerable to an extent, when you know that a hard rule has been defined and everybody has to follow those norms, theoretically, definition wise, I would say that you are liable because you are a part of bigger ecosystem. Somebody who is working with you today, tomorrow would be part of somebody else's system. And that's how you are connected. It's not just about your organization. It's not just about your piece of going right and wrong. Definitely when we think about, company values being depreciated, or it may have reputation, or attrition's going up, or employee trust going down, all those things here we would say it is supporting our business, and that would be the core agenda for most of the organizations. But I strongly feel that we are liable in some sense by definition and by act. But I would agree to Narendra and Sanjay on one point for sure, which is it's all about the intent. A lot of organizations where you would find that legally documented, probably they are not even um, going by 50% of it, but you would not come across a case or two cases in a longer span of time. But there are other companies who would have a concrete team placed to handle such issues, and it's 100% compliant company, but you still find a lot of cases coming up. So it's also the moral responsibility obligation, as we have already used that, but it's also about the intent. Lot would be defined by law, but things would change at a much faster pace. Sometimes in at organization level, things would move a little slow because we are maybe during M&A, we are going slow, and law would have changed by then. So more than purely going by lines of law or books, you will also have to put your intent and values across and be liable to the people who are working with you and the society at large.
I think nothing more than Ankita, she put it in a very, very nicely. I live in Bangalore, where hundreds of startups every month we are seeing. Those who live in Bangalore can understand. And I live in a community where a lot of people quit their jobs, start doing a startup and other things. So till a month back, even after 10 o'clock, these Swiggies and others were delivering food here. It's slightly remote from Bangalore, the northeastern part of the Bangalore. We live in a big community. So I don't know, somebody from our community reported to one of these organizations or something. People who are driving the bike and coming delivering food after 10, it is not very safe for them. Firstly, they can be mugged, or they can be even the speeding trucks can hit them. All these things are there. I don't know what happened. Today, they are closing that last order. Yesterday night, I think, day for yesterday night, my daughter ordered exactly 9 o'clock, no order being picked up. Can you believe it? That means there is no law currently. Even for gig workers, they are behaving very responsibly. Hats off to those organizations. They are doing a good job. They are taking the feedback from somebody, and they are not taking with a negative intent that I'm losing the business. They are having some kind of a benevolent thought process. Yes, even though he's a gig worker, he's not directly employed by me. His safety is my concern. That's very, very important, I feel. And I'm happy that even startup organizations have started doing that. Not just 100-year-old companies like Tata's and Coca-Cola. That's a very important thing. That means these are all the indications that companies are ready to comply. So law always follows the practices.
Right, absolutely.
Sure, sure, right. So I think Narendra, very validly you touched upon this nerve of the startups and setting up a new industry or a new setup. What are the views in terms of the whether these compliances are opening up opportunities, or they are increasing more complexities when we open up a new industry, or whether we open up a new unit? What are the views on this?
If you ask me, it is a chicken and egg story. Which comes first? whether your business ideas has to mature, then you have to comply, or the compliance and infrastructure should be in place so that the whole thing has a guardrail. It grows very carefully. It consolidates. It is not going out of hand. So it's a huge challenge before any entrepreneur today. So, but I'm happy to see if you all probably team these kind of organization will have a greater view. Many startups are offering a job called compliance manager, chief compliance officer, principal compliance, all these things. I don't know how many of you have noticed that. And they are keen on hiring those positions, so that right in the beginning, they are trying to put all these guardrails in place so that they are they are getting into the social licensing is not an issue for them. Thereby, the respectability will go up among the people who are, especially the customers and others. They can really thrive on it. And probably the banking also, which are funding foreign investors, they also look for all these things, good things. Because what they look for, they are looking for the sustenance. The people who are already putting all these things in place and running a business right in the beginning, they get rank better, I feel. I don't know, because only Sanjay Banka can answer those things, because I have no view of how the investors see those things from the angle and invest in such things. Like I happened to visit recently, about 15-20 days back, our principals, like we are part of a company called BIG, this is Bottling Investment Group. The chief people officer and his own DRs and all have come to Bangalore. Of course, they took a tour in India to some of our factories and all. I happened to visit an organization called Zepto, ZEPTO. It is one of the stores, they call it dark stores. In Bangalore, I visited. I'm really, enthralled by the way the whole thing is working. And I'm seeing every employee resonating, though we are delivering in 10 minutes, we don't, ask them to speed up. The various, parameters are put in place to ensure that delivery happens in 10 minutes. The picking speed, the way they are, putting into the bag of the guy who goes and delivers, all these things are taken care. And they are very clear, like where I live, Zepto is not working. They're telling, it's not going to be. So we will come. But for that, they have to set up all these things. So that means the HR manager, I met him, and he was not talking about it. I met the stores manager. He's talking about the safety of the people. So I'm very happy that, things are there. That is why in 11 months of startup, they garnered around 6,800 crore investment.
So I will add here that obviously setting up a business is complex, but that complexity depends upon the size of the business. If you set up a small shop, the complexity is very small. You only need to take a trade license, and GST if you cross the limit, and you can start the business. But if you set up a big factory, big plant, if your effluents are high risk, if you are going to appoint contract labor, if you cross certain limits, female employees. So I think that the entire industrial law premise is based on a modular approach. Depending on the size of the business and the nature of the risk, more and more industrial law comes. Now, question is, do the entrepreneurs like it? I will not like to comment. But I think it is not about liking or not liking. It is about a society in which we live, and the laws have to impose. And once you get into practice, you don't dislike it. And it depends upon the ethical governance. So if you see from a LOTR perspective, listing and other disclosure requirement, and also from Company Act requirement, there are three important board committees which monitor these things. One is CSR committee, which monitors about the utilization of CSR fund, how much you have deployed. So the CSR committee, which includes independent directors, they can drive the social licensing and social responsibility. The risk committee, which is extremely important paraphernalia of corporate governance. It is a risk committee which looks at compliances. So the risk committee and audit committee are two different organs of the board. And through the board mechanism and through, like, let's say, on an audit committee chairman, can only be an independent director. The executive director cannot be an audit committee chairman. So this entire obligation of the compliance management through the audit committee and risk committee is cast upon the independent directors as a framework. So slowly, I think over a period of time, this compliance, the compliance rules will become the norm. It has already become the norm. Now the question is about the startup. Startup have to follow the rules. You can't be a fly-by-night operator. And similarly, if you are expecting huge gains, then you have to pick up the cost for compliance. There is no shortcut to my understanding. Thank you, Sumit.
Sure, Sanjay and Narendra. Very, very important perspectives here. Now coming to and again, this is a very, very important aspect, because we are seeing a lot of startups coming in and how they are they are driving and changing the entire working landscape of various businesses, right from the not only in our manufacturing sector, but also in the services sector with respect to various aspects. And a very key aspect is also the occupational safety and health practices, which is there, and there were certain amount of rules that were there in terms of earlier when we in the traditional economy, and now how in the fast changing economy. So from your experience, maybe one or two examples which are very, very important, in which the occupational health safety and health measures should be changed or are changing, that will help our audience in appreciating the changes in that.
Are you asking me or somebody?
Anyone can from their experience.
See now as the law has to catch up. I always say the occupational health and safety, whatever the law which currently exists, it is all a little antiquated. They are more focused on industry. There is one question which has come in chat box. Somebody can see, someone called Sunita Yadav asked about 24/7 kind of operations. How does it impact? Let's talk about that a little bit. So will it affect the health of an employee who is to come every second day in a different shift and work a night shift? Obviously, it will have a lasting effect. People who are not regularly sleeping, it is going to impact them. So what are you going to do about it? So the industry cannot just say every second day or third day they cannot rotate the shift. At least reasonably give 1 week or 15 days once you change the thing. At least the body gets used to a sleep pattern, at least 2 or 3 days. Like you have traveled to US and coming back. Obviously jet lag, people tend to sleep for 2-3 days. Same thing will happen for them also. So these are the things, law cannot come and define it. It is the industry, it is the HR manager who has to think through and come out with something and talk about it and put it in action. The rostering fellow, it does, for his convenience or some reason, somebody operation guy's convenience, does it. So it is HR who has to button and say, look, buddy, this is not a right thing. People have to, maybe in the young age, people are able to cope up. When they cross 35 and reaching 40, it is having a telling effect. It is not a sustainable model. Somebody has to think about it. So if you ask me, in the S&D Act, where it is defined, you cannot have a rotational shift every second day or third day. It is not there. So it will all evolve later. So lucky we had something despite of having an adverse impact called COVID. There are a lot of learnings happened. I don't know how many of you, probably Ankita would have learned a lot in the COVID time. And everybody, like our organization, we learned a lot. How to take care of our employees, how to take care of the families, how to protect them from all these things. So I can go on talking about it. I'm just giving you, every organization has done it. So does that law existed when the COVID stuck? Their company, government went and said, Modi one day appeared and said, tomorrow onwards lockdown. That's the only thing he did, right? If you remember, after second, the MHA circular only said you have to pay 3 months salary for even contract labor. If you remember all this sequence of thing, I vividly remember. Even before that, we went ahead and implemented. All the contract labor were paid even one day present in that month. 2020 February month, he was paid a salary. And March also we paid, April also we paid, like that. So these are all many, it's not just our company, many companies have done it, because I have a view, because I got connected with CIA just took a stock of it, how many are doing it, and it's many, at least about 30-40% of the companies, and they paid immediately without the notification came. So that's it. Like, it has to be, it is to be volitionally, people have to think through. If they are really a caring organization, they have to do it. So we cannot depend everything. Law will come and define this is what you have to do. Then it is not a good sign of compliance. Compliance has to be based on social licensing, in my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely, Doctor. Absolutely, thanks, Narendra. Dr. Ankita, your views on this in terms of the changing landscape and the and these laws, especially on the health and safety, occupational health and safety.
So Sumit, because of COVID, or otherwise also, we've been talking about VUCA world for such a long time, and
Yeah.
now that we witness so much of hybrid work model and workforce combination, um, you know location is definitely a constraint. We don't know where our employees are, and now when we talk about even smaller companies who are just starting, how well or aligned you are to the laws those are defined for your people and for your workplace. I think one change that I have seen post COVID is people have started going beyond the norms, right? There is something which is written in the book, but they have taken that extra step which is required to recognize individual needs, and if at all it's in favor and it's not negatively impacting business, people or management, they are not shying away from adapting those things. They have included more points or more clauses in their employee handbook in addition to the norms we already abide to. Second, a change that I have seen is personalization to a great extent. If you purely go by law, they would give you 10 cases, probably 15 instances. When you actually come back to your work, you may come across 100 different cases, which would be because of different individuals, their different perspective, different environment, and because they are working with you, they would expect you to consider and recognize their need. And now, when I personally talk about my organization and when we talk in different forums and when I connect with other HR people, I have seen that everybody is saying that we are more receptive. We do not go by black and white, but we have accepted the gray area, and probably everybody is playing in that space as well. So these are the two that I would highlight.
Sure, sure. Very, very pertinent. Very, very pertinent observations, and with the changing landscape and it's no one knows, what's going to unfold in next quarter or 2 quarters. But definitely, all of us are now more aware, and it's coming from within to be very, very careful as far as these execution of the safety measures and occupation safety and health measures is concerned. With all this in the backdrop, and with the great examples that we've been discussing in this panel, how important it is to get a expert to manage or to ensure that the compliance is almost 100%. So, with your perspective, that does it help, or is it can it be done? Your views.
You asked me for a plain vanilla compliance from the whatever the statutory compliance we are talking. There are a lot of companies during the last 2 years, they have come out with a digitalized way in which compliance can be met. It is no more, a job, a burden of HR or someone. I'm talking about HR only, because Sanjay will immediately say there are hundreds of compliances with respect to company laws. Somebody from manufacturing say, no, there are complaints are many, all these things. I'm talking about particularly about HR. at least on HR, there are organizations, they are digitalizing it. So if you feed in, or if you create a right interface with the right kind of a payroll and attendance input on the system, it does automatically see whether you have any seventh day violation, whether you have paid compensated people on a overtime appropriately, whether holidays have been compensated with the right kind of a thing. All these things are going to just quickly be analyzed and said. It is not just a sample size will be taken. Like audit will do a picking the sample and see. Whereas there are automated AI-enabled tools are available today. They are going to run through 100% of your record and going to churn out how many non-compliances. So you can do a remedial actions on that. That is the plain vanilla stuff I'm talking. But beyond that, this is something, compliance, we have to be a learning organization. The HR or ER manager or a compliance manager, I cannot say I know everything. I know the law backwards. I can do everything. No, that is not the thing. Because law is little antiquated. Sometimes it is obsolete. The law is going to be evolving over a period of time. Some years back, if somebody talks about the Personal Sensitive Information Act, nobody knows today. I don't know how many of you know all our compliances today. We don't have to maintain anything in the pen and paper or a record form. Each state has published based on the 2-3 years back, the union government's advice. Today, you can do everything electronically and prove your thing. So law will always catch up later, but your only way of doing it is networking. I have to suppose what is happening in service sector. If I have to network with Ankita and find out, if I have to network with Sanjay, I have to find it out. What is that specially they are doing? Because it is very specific to the industry. So you have to network, you have to witness, you have to go and see, and you have to have all the faculties of yours as a compliance manager. It has to be open to see what is happening around. Then you have to learn from there and see that what all the things can be adopted by you and elevated. Start doing on your own. Don't wait for the law to come and tell you, oh, do that. Then it becomes a bitter pill. That's what my take is.
Sure.
But I will make it a slightly more perspective, and this is a very hot topic. And I would say most of the small organizations, when I say small, I say organizations below 2,000 crore turnover, are living in absolute confusion about the obligation for compliance. They think that there is a God who will come and tell everything about the compliance. I don't agree to that. I feel that most of us who have started our career from executive level and post 25 to 30s of experience have become CXO. We know the law and we are supposed to know the law. For example, a CTO, why he is not supposed to know information technology law? If a CTO says that I don't know IT law, I don't know data privacy law, and if he can proudly say I don't know. So what I see in many organizations, I find people who are very proud in expressing their ignorance. And when it comes to compliance, that should not be allowed at all. And I'm saying it at a public forum. Anyone who expresses ignorance about a law and above a GM level should be immediately sacked. And this is a very harsh statement. People proudly express ignorance about the law and they dump it everything upon the legal head. So to my understanding, in any company, there are multiple departmental heads. One is the company secretary, the legal head can be separate. If it is only a company secretary and separate legal head, then company secretary generally say, I know only company jack, nothing else. It's a very interesting thing, When it comes to finance, finance will say, I'm only responsible for financial laws. That means direct tax law, indirect tax laws, and the accounting related law. HR is supposed to know the industrial law, labor law. Now, who is responsible? And it will depend upon the organization culture. That the factory, which is a very important part, factory is reporting to whom? Administratively, while the factory will report to business head, is there an HR person in factory? If yes, then the industrial IR person or the IR person separate, let's say in case of Narendra, the IR or HR will become responsible for entire factory related law, including pollution control, including employment exchange and so on. And then there is a corporate. So whatever is not, cannot be related to anybody else can be dumped on corporate, that is the CEO. So it's very complex. And if we think that there is a single expert in India who can comprehensively cover all the laws, there are very few. While one should always, if we find that my existing team of the CXOs are not yet able to come to a conclusion, and we are not able to align as to who is responsible for which law, then immediately a good law firm consultancy should be taken to establish the responsibility. And that is where the CEO has to enforce basic discipline, that no, in matters of compliance, there is no two-way. For example, FEMA law. Now, FEMA transactions, if the import export is a separate department, and so it will depend upon the organization culture. If import export is separate department, that department is conducting all FEMA related transactions, then you can't hold finance responsible. So a joint sitting should be done, responsibility should be allocated, and depending upon the nature of transactions, the first cut compliance list must come from within the company. Else, there is always a risk when you depend upon third party. And only when this compliance list is ready, then only you should discuss to a third party for automation. Because, as I said, that I have seen such a software working in of a big four. And the moment you say big four, it has got a respectability. They had made the entire organization like hell. So it was a standard product. And since within the company, everybody was proudly ignorant about the compliance, so they must have expressed their ignorance proudly to the big four. And the big four person came and he activated all the compliances. Now, for almost 4 to 5 days, entire organization across all departments, be it IT, HR, CS, factory, everybody is only ticking, uploading document and making it use complex structure which is not required. So my message is that the compliance is very important. People across tables should fit together, and we should look at a L1, L2, L3 approach, whereby the compliances which are high risk area should be top priority, and bottom level compliances need not be included in the compliance management software. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Dr. Ankita, from your perspective, is a separate expertise required for managing the compliances, or it can be 100% managed within?
Again, I would say that would depend on various factors, but looking at personal experience, I would say you should always have a checkpoint. Internal, no matter how expert we are, we know A to Z of everything, but there is a possibility that we may miss somewhere. And obviously it's a shared responsibility when you're talking about a system which is within created. Their first task is to ensure that everybody is aware and participative. They all know their roles. They are checking on maybe weekly, quarterly, or half-yearly basis what you're doing and are you doing it right. They're able to connect the dots of different departments and different functions. Proper check is done, awareness is made, connect is done, but still it's a team-reliant activity, right? Where you are trying to probably do best for your organization as per your best knowledge, but a lot of things are already changing outside when we talk about law. So an external expert or dedicated internal expert, I would say, would definitely be required, because we would not even know how soon the laws would have changed, and we have already missed on 30 odd things in the last 3 months. So we really have to keep a check, and for that a dedicated expert, internal as well as external in some percentage, according to me, should be considered.
If you ask me, Sumit, we need an internally focused team, or depend on the size of the organization, as Sanjay was talking about, either a person or a team who is internally focused, but he is externally well connected. It is not that, as he rightly said, he may be knowing the law, he may be knowing various things. How does it impact the business? Like FEMA case he has brought in. If the organization is more into doing export and import, and it is finances only doing accounting and treasury management, how can you make them responsible for FEMA compliance? So the person who is going to be chief compliance officer has to be internally focused, at the same time externally well connected, see what is the like industries are doing, what is the best practice of bringing in ICM, the internal control measures, and all these things have to be thought through and put in place. Then only this is going to be easy go. Otherwise, it will all fall between the cracks, and one day somebody will be blaming other, and ultimately some directors will get a someone to appear in the court, and we will be spending a huge fee on the lawyers to defend ourselves. There are some questions which has come, and somebody can answer
Right.
that. I'm seeing that.
Right, sure. So certainly, although we are almost of the time, but one question is from Sunita Yadav, and it's on the Shop and Establishment Act. So Sunita, so Shop and Establishment is a very detailed topic, and certainly we will try and see if we can have a web panel and a webinar only on Shop and Establishment. Another question is from Bhaskar Tiwari, and I would request our panelists to have to share their views on this question. And the question is, don't you think, like Maternity Benefit Act, a Paternity Benefit Act must also be introduced, no matter for 3 days or 15 days, but it must be considered. It must be there considering the social aspect.
I actually already said the law will always catch up later. It is the organization which has to look for the best practices in the domain. If other organizations of you are giving, so you are having a predominantly age group of 20 to 30, 35, and all these guys are getting married, and in the time of becoming a father, obviously they need that who has to think about it? It is not that one person who is sitting there as HR head. He has to think, or he or she has to think and propose to the board and make sure that that becomes a norm. As he rightly said, whether it is 5 days or 15 days, which is very important, that being a father, and that too being with his wife, she has become postpartum pains. It's very important for a person to be with her. And
from
nowadays,
Narendra's side, it is a yes.
Yes, it has to be. Law will catch up later, but the organizations have to take care. Those who are present in the HR community here, I only urge them to talk to the CHRO and talk to various opinion makers in the organization. Try to bring those things. If you don't influence that, if you wait for the law to come, it will take another 10 years. By the time you become 40 plus, it can only benefit your children, not you.
Sure. Thanks, Narendra. What's your views on this?
So, as in our organization, we already have it, and really happy to share. But more than that, we have, my day or my leave system, where people can actually define, what is the reason for which they want to take that break. We do not judge, we do not question beyond a point. If you have earned it, you should take it. And for paternity leave, definitely, I would not say it is 6 months, but it is 3 months for few cases in our organization. And for others, it is a month time that we have given. And yes, very rightly said by Narendra, as far as you are doing good to the people, no law is coming after you to, put an obstacle or question you. Only when we go against the norm defined, there is a problem. So nobody is stopping us to define our own rules, our own processes and policies, which can benefit employees as well as the organization. So we should definitely have one. And Bhaskar, yes, I also agree.
Oh, great. From Ankita's side also, it's a green on getting the Paternity Benefits Act. Rather, you have implemented some parts in some way or the form in your organization. That's great to hear, Ankita. Sanjay, from your side, what will be your take on this?
I believe Sanjay has had some technical glitch here, and I think considering the paucity of time, we may have to end the webinar. Sorry to
So maybe we can have Sanjay's views offline and then share with our participants.
Sorry, I know we are already late. Just 5-10 seconds. All I would say is sometimes it becomes easy for a service sector like us to take these kind of decisions. But imagine a person disappearing from the profile for 3 months. Will you be able to wait for that individual? Or you will hire somebody in place of him, and once he is back, how will you assure the job security? So there are a lot of factors that would influence why organizations are taking this decision and why they are still not going ahead with extensive paternity leave. So it will be organization specific. That's all. Thank you.
Very valid point. And I think there are some other questions, and there are many other aspects of ease of doing business which we would have wanted to discuss, but 1 hour is pretty short time. So we will what we'll do is we'll try and see if we can get all of the panelists time again, and then have a part 2 for this particular session, and then we can have more audience questions and answers to that. With this, Narendra and Ankita, I would like to thank you, and if there are some last takeaways for the audience, you can share with the audience, please.
Very simple. Law will always follow later. If you are in a responsible position in the organization, and everybody is responsible, I don't say you have to have a title to be responsible. It is up to you. You influence the right set of leaders to bring the right set of governance policies, and that is going to make your organization perpetually a sustainable organization. Otherwise, you are at a risk of your organization losing its face in the society. Thereby, you will end up, finally, it is going to impact you.
Sure. Thank you, Narendra. Ankita, your few words.
When we deal with people, I think we would never reach a stage where we would say we didn't know. So we have to be accountable and responsible for whatever we are doing for all our acts, and that's really important. So that would be my last sentence, that whatever you do, be intentionally conscious about it, be accountable, and be responsible for each and every act.
Great. Thanks, Ankita, and thanks, Sanjay. And it has been really informative session, as we can see the in the chat board from our participants. But certainly, this is just the beginning, and I think another session in continuity will be required. So thank you again to all our panelists, Narendra, Dr. Ankita, and Sanjay, and all the participants. Thank you so much, and looking forward to many such informative and enlightening sessions basis your vast and deep domain industry experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, participant. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. It was amazing being here. Thank you.